So we're at 11:30. We'll just get right into it. Quickly, I'm Clara Luke, and I'll be the facilitator for this session today. I'm going to do a land acknowledgement, and then we'll do fuller introductions for our presenters. So for that, I will just share my screen. Give me one moment. Okay. So we acknowledge that the traditional territory upon which the conference is being hosted, and for many thousands of years, the Huron-Wendat and Petun First Nations, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, the Seneca, and most recently, the Mississaugas, Michisagig of the Credit have sought to walk gently on this land. This territory is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit, as well as the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabeg and allied nations to peaceably share and care for the lands and resources around the Great Lakes. This acknowledgement signals our desire to seek a relationship with the original peoples of this land, one based on honor and deep respect, and is a starting point to remind us all to enact this work in our personal and professional lives. Okay, so once again, I'm Clara Luke. I'm a project supervisor at EcoSchools Canada. And I'd also like to introduce our Zoom host, Lauren Azopardi. I hope I pronounced your name correctly, Lauren. And now I will introduce our presenters for today. We have first, presenters, if you can just give a little wave when I introduce you, that would be great. So first, we have Robert Wallis, whose drive to put the outdoors into his teaching saw him join Outward Bound Canada in 2011, soon becoming principal and curriculum manager. He's kept really busy with 8-year-old twins and a 6-year-old, and his greatest pleasure is watching them explore and discover their natural world. We also have with us today Marika Chandler, who has been working with Outward Bound Canada for the past 5 years as the Ontario director. It has been an exciting role to work within a nonprofit organization, ensuring everyone has access to both short and extended wilderness expeditions to build community and see students learn just how much grit they have. Marika has worked within the nonprofit industry for years, paddling along rivers with Boundless Adventures, building recreation programs for the homeless in Edmonton, supervising Girl Guide camps in Ontario, and now with OBC. Initially, after her undergraduate degree, she had a brief career in the healthcare industry where she longed to be back outdoors with where her first jobs had been. She went back to school and graduated from Queen's University Outdoor and Experiential Education Program, and she hasn't looked back since. Marika sits on the Fleming College Outdoor Adventure Program Advisory Council, has presented at conferences such as COEO and the Outdoor Collective, and has participated in international Outward Bound events. So we welcome you both here today. Just a note for everyone attending, if you do have questions or comments for our presenters, you can add them in the chat, and we'll have 10 minutes at the end of the presentation when we'll get to your questions. So with that, I will just ask our presenters to take it away.
Great, thanks so much for that introduction, Clara. I'm going to share my screen now. There we go. Okay, so thanks everybody for joining us. We're really excited to get to chat with some of you today. I think the conference has been off to a great start so far, and we're really excited to be a part of it. As Clara said, I'm Marika Chandler and with OB, and she's given a great introduction to Rob, my coworker as well, who's here with us. So we're excited to just kind of dive into the presentation here. Those of you who don't know Outward Bound Canada, we've been in Canada for 51 years now. We're part of an international set of Outward Bound schools, I think 34 countries in the world, including Outward Bound Oman, for example. So it's pretty fascinating. I mean, this mission and what we're doing, it really connects us to that international network of schools that are doing some really interesting programming around the world.
I come from the UK, and we have a lot of sheep in the UK, and I thought it would be great to start off with finding out where you're at. So you can see these little lambs here are going through various stages in their lives. What I want you to do is at the top of your screen under View Options, if you click on that, there's a drop-down menu that says Annotate, and I want you to press on that and then on Stamp, and you can choose what kind of stamp you want. I want you to place your stamp on how you might be feeling this morning. So for example, I'm going to choose a heart, and I'm feeling giddy. So I've put mine on number 9. So please go ahead and
it's great. Nobody has the bucket over their head. That's one of my favorites.
Save that for
doing.
Yeah. All right.
Super duper. Now let's move on to the next slide, please, Marika.
Mm-hmm. Well, trying to clear the stars.
Yeah, I can't clear them, it turns out. Okay, now what I'd like you to do is just place a stamp on where you are at the moment, please. So same again, View Options down to Annotate, and then click on Stamp. You can choose which kind of stamp you're on. Now we can see where in Canada you're coming from, and if you're outside Canada, then you'll have to go on the edge, I'm afraid. Okay, so we have quite a few in Ontario there, but we've got a couple someone in the Rockies, someone over in Vancouver. That's great.
Winnipeg, it looks like. Maybe Montreal.
Right.
It's great. A
Great.
lot of Ontarians
Thank
sheltering
you.
in place. Okay, I'm gonna. Seems like the cadence has slowed down. I'm gonna clear.
Great. Thank you to the other Marika who put in the chat how to do that.
Yes, I have a name twin. That's exciting. So, oh gosh, we've left 1X. So as I mentioned, Outward Bound is part of an international set of schools that are around the world. And it's interesting. I mean, our past in Canada has really been rooted in the 21-day canoe trip expedition. So that's really kind of our founding core in Canada. And what's interesting is that's not, within the Outward Bound schools, that's often what comes to mind for a lot of Canadians that I meet, but that's not actually what's most prevalent around the world at different Outward Bound schools. So I wanted to take you through a little bit of our journey as to how we got to where this photo is showing us. Over the past 51 years, I would say 40 years in, we started to look at what are the barriers that youth face in going on expeditions, particularly when we think of those 21-day, quite remote wilderness expeditions. So what I'm hoping for is that you can put into the chat some barriers that you maybe have faced or have seen or can identify for youth to access programs like that. Socioeconomic barriers, absolutely. Not knowing how to swim, oh, that's a really great one. So many of the risk management policies are really honing in on swimming as being a requirement of canoeing. Equipment, clothing, social anxieties, lack of equipment, these are great. Not feeling welcome in outdoor spaces, that is unfortunately the truth. Size, absolutely. Transportation. Access, this is great. Having leaders, cost of transportation. You can tell what's been on some people's minds. Fragmentation, interesting. Yeah, that's a good one. Parent guardian support. Those are all wonderful examples. And it's exactly what imposter syndrome, equipment, passing the person in the shiny brand new Arc'teryx jacket versus just being in something you got at Value Village. So everything you've identified is exactly what folks at Outward Bound 10 years ago were identifying. So just have to leave the chat. So bang on, do we have enough? Can we spare the time out of the classroom? So that ties in a little bit to cultural values. It also ties into the demands of the curriculum that we see today in schools as well. Geographical, that ties into transportation, financial, socioeconomic, cultural. Are you welcome in that space? Do you feel safe? Risk awareness or risk aversion, that ties into the swimming comment that came up. You know, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual barriers that might be there, and discomfort. And so what that did for us at Outward Bound is we moved to have a base in Toronto. We also have a Vancouver operation as well. And that was really to address all of these barriers. Not necessarily all of them are we able to tick off. You know, our programs do have physical, you know, we do require people to be physically able. And that being said, we have run programs for schools that might need a little bit of accommodation for students and, you know, students who don't need that. And so we're able to divide students between a wilderness program and an urban program concurrently, which is pretty interesting. So we operate programs right within the city that we're going to get into a little bit as we go through this.
So I want to talk about now kind of environmental education. And as Marika said, one of the primary reasons for opening an urban centre, we have one in Toronto and in Vancouver now, was that accessibility issue. But since then, we've realized that there are many more advantages to having to running expeditions in an urban centre. There's been a lot written about environmental education, and I thought this was a good opportunity, seeing as it's an environmental education focused conference, to really delve into the research behind it. So arguably one of the main reasons why we do environmental education is to change learner behavior. And even more so, potentially creating environmental ambassadors so they can pay it forward, and then the reach becomes exponential. And so there's a key paper from 1990 from Hungerford and Volk that's cited at the bottom there, that talks about what are the key factors that change learner behavior. And they posited a few different factors, one of which is extended time in nature. Another one is direct, tangible curriculum links coupled with that. Another one is having relevant and accessible green spaces. So somewhere that the students are really, really passionate about. Next click. Now, you might recognize in this, for those in Ontario, there's a number of documents that are produced by Ministry of Ed, Shaping Our Schools, Shaping Our Future, which then went into Acting Today, Shaping Tomorrow, that really connects to this. And there's been many more reports and papers written about this as well. But the key factors in these documents is that environmental education has to be about the environment, for the environment, and in the environment. So I'm going to go through each of those now in turn.
So when we talk about extended time in nature, that does harken to kind of wilderness expeditions. So I'm curious if folks, just to keep that sharing happening, if you want to put into the chat what your favorite campsite might be and where that might be. It's just, I'm sure that as you think of that, it's going to conjure up memories and feelings, sight and smell, attachment to that place that you're thinking about. And, when we think of those places, we really have that connection because we've spent a lot of time in there getting to know it. And Bruce doesn't want to share. Fair enough. Tofino, I entirely agree. Algonquin, so many good hidden spots. And when I think of these places, I can remember the feel of the rock underneath me, the sound of the water as I paddle the canoe, the feeling of the sun on my face. And I'm sure that's the same for a lot of you. So when we travel to these more remote places, that's quite removed from our home life. It's something that's afar. It's something that all of us right now are probably yearning for in this present environment where we're, you know, having to take care of each other. So those vivid memories are something that you've gained from having that extended time out there in nature. Now, through our curriculum, we focus on looking at three kind of pillars of the curriculum that are tied into also how we evaluate the program, which is going to come up later on. So that extended time in nature, we really focus on how does that improve your resiliency, your mental health, your physical health? How does it create greater connections between you and the others who are out there, you know, really working as a team in order to get from point A to point B, to set up the tarp in the rain, only to have it stop raining the moment after you get it nicely set up, you know, those kind of moments and those kind of lessons. And then that stronger connection with nature, really feeling that that is a space that has value to you now that you've been able to spend that time out in it. So that's the extended time in nature. And then again, you know, we've been fortunate enough to be able to look at what that outcome looks like for our students, and these are some of the results that have come that clearly speak to what that impact is of that that extended time in nature. So making better eco-friendly choices, having greater environmental awareness, having a greater connection to nature.
So then when we go to talk about solid curriculum pieces, almost 100% of our pedagogy is on the land. It's out on expedition. But there are some aspects of environmental education that do lend themselves to classroom teaching, whether that's an outdoor classroom or certainly more formal education. So I just want you to put in the chat what you think lends itself to more formal education, or some really good lessons that you've taught that's in that more classroom setting, that more formal education setting. So it's really good for using data, for analyzing data, learning about global issues on the other side of the world, for example. It's great to connect with people in far off places when there's formal debate and research to be done about that debate. And also looking at the remote impacts of one's behavior where we live as well. But there's a reason why Acting Today, Shaping Tomorrow not only states it's for and about, but it needs to be in the environment as well. And there's a great quote at the bottom there: "What is the extinction of the condor to a child who has never seen a wren?" And so really making it relevant to the students that we teach. Moving on. The third thing is introducing students to relevant places and making sure it's accessible for them. So I'm introducing you here to Sam. Sam is my youngest son, and we went for a walk recently in the ravines of Toronto, and he kept picking up these snail shells, and he ended up having this competition with his brother Benjamin to see how many he could carry in his hands. And I've got a deadline. I need to get back for dinner or Grey's Anatomy or something. And, I'm tapping my foot saying, come on. And then I hear these whoops of delight as these snails start to come out of their shells. They start to crawl up their arms, down their sleeves. And we worked out together that it was the warmth of their hands that really helped these snails come out of their shell, literally. And just the joy in their voices, in their faces, that will stay with me forever, hopefully with them forever. We are now the proud owners of a mini snail farm in our living room. But it just goes to show the direct connection, like very, very simple things, very close to home, that kids can discover for themselves, and making it really relevant to where they are. So what does this mean for Outward Bound and putting it all together? So we've got extended time in nature, we've got solid, tangible curriculum points, and accessible and relevant green spaces. And the way that we put that together is through our urban expeditions. So this image here shows our urban center. On the bottom left there, you'll see the Don Valley Brickworks. That's where we have our urban center. And you can see that Toronto really is a city within a park. We're blessed to live in a country that does value green spaces, and you can really tell from this image how green it is. So I'm just going to take you through the journey of where we take our students. And so on the map, Marika, there we go. Just above the name Toronto there, right in close to downtown is where our urban centre is. And on the next image, you'll see these are our intrepid instructors just about to leave there. You may recognize a couple of them. And we head out from the brickworks and we use public transport. We introduce the students to how they can access these places. Key take-home point, avoid rush hour if you've got 14 people with massive backpacks on. We learned that one pretty quickly. Sometimes it's a heck of a deadline to beat. And then we travel to the archipelago of Toronto Islands here. There's more than 23 different islands. And we travel to the mysterious, enchanting island of Snake Island in there. And we travel by canoe and set up camp and go through the process of, okay, what does a canoe trip, what are the different components of a canoe trip? What are the skills we learn? We stay there for 2 nights, so we're able to paddle around right close to downtown Toronto. Some of the students can see their houses, can see where they live right from there. And then originally we had the notion that we were going to canoe all the way along the lakeshore up to the Rouge. Apparently multi-million-dollar homes aren't too keen on having 14 bedraggled, sweaty students camp in their gardens. So we had to kind of change tack. And we transfer then by the GO train, so introducing them to another form of public transport across to the Rouge, where we change theme. So we go from canoeing now to backpacking, and they get a different experience. Every so often, in the background, we can see the CN Tower, just to remind us that we're still pretty close to downtown. And then every so often as well, we pop out onto a major road and we're hiking along with these big backpacks. It's great when some motorists are honking at us and shouting encouragement to the students as we're hiking along. But it really does introduce them to different modes of transport and how they can backpack through their city. So we've shown you how we do it. Now we want to explore how you might do it and different ideas that you might have. So over to you, Marika.
Yes, and maybe Rob, while I intro this, you can figure out how many breakout rooms we need. So we're going to put you into breakout rooms, and what we'd like you to do is to think about how you might be able to do this in your own space, whatever that means, the space that's accessible to your school or within your community. We've really looked at, what are those tracks of green space, or what are those waterways that really connect? Where are the places that we can potentially camp with a group? And all of this, when I think of David Sobel and the quote that was up in place-based education, he spoke in Toronto a number of years ago. And I was thinking, if we can give students the opportunity to have these experiences in the city 20 years from now, when those students are voting members of the community or on city council, what are the decisions they're going to make? So think of that as it pertains to your space. You're going to end up in a breakout room, probably with someone who might not live in the same area as you, and that I think will provide some richness to your conversation. So I'd like you to consider these questions, and maybe just for the sake of memory, if you have a cell phone, take a photo of this slide. We're going to put it in the chat once you're in the breakout rooms as well, so you'll have access, but just if you can take a second and take a picture, that's also, I know, really helpful in this digital presentation world. So Rob, how many breakout rooms are we going to have?
I think probably 6 breakout rooms.
Great.
Should be 3.
And you'll have about 10 minutes. We've made sure to leave some time to introduce yourselves.
Thanks.
Now for Lauren, our tech wizard, is there any support that we can give people if they're having difficulty getting into a breakout room?
Absolutely. So you should be receiving a message that will invite you to join a breakout room. You can just click accept or join room, and that will help you to get into your breakout room. And then as well, now, if there's anything that that you'd like to share and broadcast a message to all of the breakout rooms, you can just let me know and I can type something in and I can hit
That's
broadcast
great.
message to all. So for example, if you wanted to give them a reminder of the instructions, or if you wanted to give them like a 2-minute warning before we come back. And as well, when I close the rooms, I think it should give them about a 60-second countdown so that they have a warning to come back to the main session.
Okay, and Rob was supposed to stay here to give you the questions to paste. So if you'll give me a minute, since he's not here, I will find them to send you. I can't paste them out of my slide. Well, maybe I'll try pasting them out of the slide. Zabby, if you can hear me, it's nice to see you here. Rob got excited.
Hi, I was just in breakout room 4 and there was no one else there.
Oh no.
Is there a way to get into a different room?
Lauren,
Yep, absolutely. So sorry, was that Jane speaking?
Yep.
Yep. So Jane, I'm going to try moving you to a different room.
Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, Mika said she was alone or they were alone in a room as well.
Yes, so I just moved them as well to a different room.
Okay, great. So if I paste the questions in the chat to everyone, they won't see them, but you'll be able to take them and put them in the other place?
Yes, yeah. If you post it in the chat or you can directly send it to me, then I can just copy and paste and send a message to all.
Okay. I lose my nice bullet points, but that's okay.
Rob's back.
Oh, great. I could stop texting you then.
I was in a breakout room having a great conversation.
Great.
Do you want me to post it in the chat as well? They can see the chat, it seems.
I put it in the chat, but Lauren's also broadcasting it.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yep,
yeah,
it's all been broadcasted. So
I closed the presentation plan on my computer, so I had to scribble to find it. It's okay, we got it sorted out.
Right. And I think it was good timing as well. They were still introducing themselves.
Great. By my clock, I think we're they're in breakout rooms till 5 past, which means we've got to swiftly wrap up, Rob.
Yeah, I think we're better than I thought we would be.
Oh, that's great. This part can get deleted when the recording goes live.
Oh, right. Yeah. It was the one thing that I omitted to do, which is why I was retyping all of those.
Mm.
Thankfully,
Okay, we've got it covered. Some familiar people.
Yeah, I noticed yesterday actually at the workshops that I was at, it gradually went up. I don't know if it's because previous ones went over or something, but it gradually went up throughout the presentation with the number of folks. So can you see the list of participants now in breakout rooms?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I can't.
You should be able to if you go to that more and then click on breakout rooms. That's how I saw it.
There's a couple of people wanting to get in.
Lauren's all over that.
We're going to come here though. We'll have to introduce them to the questions. Hello there. Hi, Rhiannon. Is that Rhiannon? If you can hear us, our participants are on breakout rooms at the moment. If you'd like to chat about what they're talking about, you could come off mute and we can chat to you what we've gone through so far. But they'll just be there for another 5 minutes, I think.
1 minute, really. 12:05, they need to come out.
Would you like me to give them a 1 minute warning?
That's probably a good idea.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Lauren.
No problem.
Time flies.
And you're doing this next bit for you, Marika?
Yes, yeah.
Right.
Can you read out notable things from the chat? It's I was slow on the clicking through the slideshow because my computer's getting confused where I'm clicking.
Right. You were doing very well. You kept saying things before I could.
I feel like maybe some people left entirely instead of leaving their breakout room. Our participant number just plummeted.
Oh, really?
I don't think I really saw anybody drop
or maybe,
out.
Sorry, maybe I'm just seeing the participants in this room.
They should be coming back in about 15 seconds or so.
Okay.
Okay. Another few.
There we go. Welcome back, everyone. I know that wasn't enough time to plan an expedition by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm curious about some takeaway thoughts or surprises or ideas. And again, if just using the chat, if folks want to type in an idea of a space to visit or a barrier that was maybe surprising that you hadn't thought of, Thanks, Julie. That's great. I hope hope you've got some ideas out of that. Taylor Creek Park, that's such a great space. We certainly use that, and I think that's where the snail photo even came from.
Yeah, going there in an hour.
Yeah, and what's wonderful, I mean, I'm just dreaming of the new park that Toronto's building, the Meadowway, which is going to connect essentially from the Don Valley out to Rouge Valley. So again, thinking of that, what's the continuous green space connection? So just to share, I mean, there's been some surprising barriers or challenges that we've faced. Oh, that's great. And just to share some of them with you, because they were very surprising. So something you have to think about is, can you take fuel on public transit? TTC does not allow you to do that. So we have to find some creative ways to get around that. Sometimes our water access and water filtering is different. So an urban expedition, you might be filling up at a public fountain, not in COVID. Raccoons and squirrels are far more industrious in the urban spaces, I think, than they are on a wilderness expedition.
So many raccoons.
So many. Lightning protocol. I mean, where do you have space to shelter? And I like that someone's just said teacher education, knowledge, and confidence. Yeah, that's great. Networking with teachers who can help you out with this. I think that that's really key. We have once had a group of students sneak a phone through and they ordered pizza to their campsite, which was very surprising. They were all really happy. We also had a principal who was really concerned that we didn't have enough food. So he showed up with donuts and coffee for breakfast for everyone. So there are different challenges that come up. Highway noise. This is an interesting one. For those of us who are outdoorsy and are used to kind of a more wilderness setting, some of our teachers think, well, that, we could hear the traffic, that wasn't, very remote, but yet the students who are out there with us, they've never been in darkness like that, even though they're, just in the Rouge Valley or camping at Fort York downtown. So it's interesting how our own lenses and biases play in. So thinking, okay, what can this look like if this is really rolled out broadly? And I see more comments coming in. Those are great. Turkeys and coyotes in Montreal, also in Toronto. But what's really interesting for us, as I mentioned, we're part of an international network. Outward Bound Singapore is actually quite connected to the government, which is fascinating. But the government dedicated that 100% of students would be going on an outward bound expedition. And in Singapore, that means an urban expedition. And so they have 100% participation pretty much in the school board there. And these are the kind of impact results that come from that data set, which is quite vast. So it's interesting to see what they're doing. And these urban expeditions are things that, Outward Bound Philadelphia, Baltimore, California, and building that connection from, okay, now you've done it in the urban space. Does that mean that you have that confidence that, you've kind of set foot in the door and can you go farther afield? Or does it mean that you're just connected to the green spaces around you in a more thorough way than you were before? And therefore you will be more inclined to be a steward, to connect, to reap all of the personal benefits of going to those spaces as well for your mental health and such. So Singapore is really a wonderful one for us to look at.
I think that really connects to some of the comments in the chat of really some of them are some barriers that just if people were more used to this, then it becomes easier to do with teacher education, with getting students outside the timetable. I think that's quite a difficult thing for mainstream schools is we're held to that 1.25 hour bell time. And when we go on extended expeditions, then that's removed, which is great. So thanks for sharing those. You can never expect what kind of issues you can have on a camping expedition, which is part of the learning. But I just wanted to finish off with where we've come from and where we're going. So Outward Bound was founded in a global crisis in the middle of World War II. And in fact, in response to World War II, supporting service personnel as they tried to survive the rigors of war. So we've been teaching resilience, but also respect for fellow humans, the interactions that they have and how we collaborate. And we've been doing this for 52 years in Canada and 85 years internationally. And it's so important and still relevant today for those resilience and social emotional intelligence. But our connection to the land is something that we've been doing. If you could just click ahead, please, Marika. It's something that we've also been doing, but our extended time in nature has been there, but it's been very osmotic. It's only been intentional in the past when instructors have arrived with those interests and skills. And really the current crisis, the climate crisis, means that we have a responsibility to do as much as we can to change the environmental behaviors for the better. And we will do this following this model. So we've got the extended time in nature with concrete curriculum teachings on environmental issues. We're going to couple that with our leadership, our respectful, persuasive debate that we have on expedition. And also we're going to couple that with service projects. So having relevant project-based learning to provide that spark for students to take their passion beyond the course. And so currently, this is what we're working on. This is our major focus, to also partner with different organizations that are already providing this service learning. And the other bits is where we come in. So that kind of brings us to the end, really. And I want to thank you for your time. If you'd like to get in contact with us, if you want to be involved in this work, then do contact us, and thank you for your time and your input during the chat.
And we do have, I believe we still have some time for questions.
That's right. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, we have 8 minutes left, so there's definitely time for questions. I think we have one actually just coming in now, and we've had lots of awesome comments throughout the session. So the question is from Danica, saying, I can't lead an expedition, but I do work in urban green spaces. Can you talk about the value of viewing urban spaces as wilderness? Do you teach about urban nature in a different way from rural/backcountry nature, or do you use the same tools and vocab in both?
This is something that we were just talking about recently, of the difficulty with the wilderness trips, or what we've termed wilderness trips, those remote trips, is it becomes a finite expedition on its own and somewhat separate to the students' lives. And the benefit of having it in the urban environment is that it is very relevant, and you can see not only the impacts of individuals, which you might see on a wilderness expedition, but the impact of many, many, many individuals. So it's a great topic for debate, and there are a lot more interesting things that come up on urban expeditions with our students. And I think, I mean, as I mentioned with my little story of Sam, like having those experience of nature within the city are still incredibly possible, and it becomes more accessible. Do you have anything to add, Marika?
I mean, I think the conversation over what is wilderness, what is that definition? And I think we could probably have an all-day session on that. And what's interesting is we've used the word urban a lot, and it's something we're trying to get away from, because when we talk to schools, a lot of people imagine, expedition packs walking down alleyways. So we do talk a little bit about it. It's much easier to talk about the direct impact of humans on the natural spaces. And particularly right now, when we see our urban green spaces really overrun with people, which is both wonderful and challenging at the same time. So yeah, we do talk about it in similar ways, but there are differences as well. Bruce, I see your question also. How can we support urban expeditions by all to happen in the spaces we are responsible for? Can you tell me a bit more what you mean about the spaces we're responsible for?
I was just a bit responding to the previous question, which was sort of saying, I'm responsible for urban green spaces, so I can't lead expeditions.
Gotcha.
So I was just trying to say, well, it sounds like you think urban expeditions are important. You know, and this is probably obvious, but how can we leave those spaces to be part of urban expeditions, even if we're not bringing the group to the space ourselves, but we're making space for groups to come to it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, having access to space and knowing that you have that access are two really important things. You know, I think when we think of, you know, the city of Toronto, we can book fire pits, we can book barbecues and things like that. And people who are land managers play an important part in youth, whether it's with us or with other teachers. Land managers play an important part in people being able to access those spaces. So are there bathrooms? Are there amenities? I think too, you know, our base being at the Brickworks in the city, there's a lot of school groups that come down there and don't have a formal time booked, but they want to use the space. And I think having confidence that there will be a space for you. So is there a gazebo? Is there, you know, some assuredness that you're not going to be, you know, cramped into the side of a busy space, or, you know, having to kind of fend for yourself, or no amenities like bathrooms or running water. I think those are really key things. During the pandemic, we ran some day programs last year in Toronto. Bathroom access was really challenging. So, you know, just having it's alarming. I mean, that's one of the barriers we have is, you know, where we're going to. Is there a bathroom when we start our day and end our day? Is there running water that we can access that we know is potable? So yeah, it's a great point, Bruce. Bathroom access is a regular issue. Yes, it is.
I think we had one up there from the other Marika asking if you can reflect on the differences between extended time in nature or expeditions and smaller scale, local, everyday short experiences outdoors, which may be easier for individual educators to enact. For example, visits to the park or exploration in the schoolyard.
Yeah, I think when we have had shorter experiences, we've tried to encourage students to then use the skills that we're giving them and this is definitely we tend to see secondary school students so that they can go off themselves to have extended experience. I do really see the value of spending overnight in nature and just really experiencing that, and you know, ideally in different seasons and different environments as well. I think to spend most of the time in environmental education in a classroom is a shame. I think it's a shame as well that the you know the bell stops some key learning when it might be, you know, you're just about to make a breakthrough and then the bell goes and you got to change to a different subject or something. I feel like extended time in nature really harnesses interdisciplinary studies. It broaches the multiple intelligences. It's got so many advantages, but it has to be a long time in nature to have its greatest effect.
And I think, yeah, I think it's great to know what is available in your area, and you're all probably quite aware of the green spaces that are in and around your school community. But I think, you know, the extended time in nature, if it's an expedition, that's wonderful. But if it's repeat visits to the same space, getting to see how the seasons change, getting to see how that environment shifts throughout the school year, you know, I really want to applaud people who are doing that with their classes already, because I think it's really that focus of just having that immersive time to really get connected to that space. I apologize, my dog is now going to take a big drink right at the end. You're probably going to hear it.
That's fine.
Potentially using that project-based learning as well, and having a project based on one particular area that you can return to.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in to say we are about a minute away from wrapping up, but I just wanted to make sure we said a big thank you to you, Marika and Rob, for presenting all of your vast experiences in this area of outdoor exploration. So thank you once again. And sorry we didn't get to that last question, but hopefully the conversation can continue kind of outside of the presentation. So thanks to everyone who attended today.
Thanks so much, everybody. It's been great to have conversations with you all. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you. See you.
Thanks, guys.